life is hard, man. And I think that there's value in people understanding that they can be the saving grace for somebody else and inspiring somebody else and helping other people around them, because we never really know what other people are going through.
Hey, everybody. I'm here this week on the Gentle Art of Leadership podcast with Zeke Cortez, and we're here to talk about life, leadership, business, and what this guy's doing to make the world a better place. Check it out. Hey, thanks for tuning into this week's episode. Would you make sure to please like, comment, and subscribe to the channel here, and please share this episode with somebody whose life it will make better. Zeke Cortez.
How's it going, man?
Welcome to the show, man.
Thanks.
So good to have you here. I've been really looking forward to having you on.
Yeah. I've been looking forward to coming here. So I appreciate you having me on.
You know, I've got some of our guests. I've known these guys for, 10, 20 years. And then I've got some guests that come out and we're new friends. I mean, you and I literally just met like a month ago, 6 weeks ago. Saw you a lot out in the Loveland community, heard your name a lot. We've got some very close mutual friends who just said, hey, have you ever sat down with Zeke? I said, no, I'd love to sit down with Zeke. So you came out and I think we got all jacked up on coffee right outside the studio here. What I loved about how you came in here, though, is, man, you were just like real and raw and open and honest, and you just laid out your story. And you've got some really great value to provide a lot of people. And I think I said, hey, what's your story? And you're just like, here it is. And here we are.
Yeah.
So you got a lot going on, man. You're a husband, a father. You've got a young family, amazing, beautiful family. You're getting into politics here in town. You're an entrepreneur, successful entrepreneur. And you've got a really great story of some things that you've overcome that I'd love to hear, man. So like, take it away.
Yeah. Well, it's a really long story. I mean, from going from, me being young and my parents splitting, but, I think the most important part of my story is, my dad died in January, a couple days after my birthday. I think I actually found out that he was in the hospital on my birthday this year. And a lot of people utilize their story as this big pity party, this big kind of victim party. And for a while I was like that. And I think it was, it just caused a lot of strife. It caused a lot of issues in my life. But I think my dad's goal coming here from Mexico, because he came from here from Sinaloa.
Yes.
He would go to school every day and then he would work on the weekends, and he was helping his family from when he was 6 years old. He worked. And his main goal,
Wow.
Yeah. So young, man, you can imagine that. Like me at 6, you could not get me to work. You know what I mean? You might have to beat me into it, but I'm not doing it like he did to support his family. So he came over, hopped on a train, got up to Chicago, and that was his big win in life. He changed his entire family line. He changed his bloodline. He changed his generation. And if you think about it, like I could have been in Mexico right now. You wouldn't know me. I might be I'd probably be in prison, or I'd be dead growing up in Sinaloa.
Yeah.
It's a pretty big drug capital here in the world. So he got here, and then he started doing ironworking as a young boy. I think he was like 16 at the time. And the guy that owned the business adopted him and then gave him the last name Cortez. So I'm actually a Sanchez. I'm not a Cortez.
Yes.
Which a lot of people don't know that about me, but that was kind of his goal. And so I think that, as generations go by, I want to do the same thing. Is like, I didn't grow up with my dad. My mom and my dad split when I was 2 years old, but he got here. He got to America, And so now my goal is I want to break the generational curse of like being in my kid's life, being in my son's life, and making sure that I'm showing up every day. And that's kind of where I take that next big win in our generation and go up. And I think over time, it just goes to show that's how generational wealth is built up. That's how good family lines are built up.
Man, that is powerful.
Yeah.
I love that. So did you grow up then with mom? So when they split when you were 2, did you then go with mom?
Yeah. I went with my mom. She raised 4 of us, and you can imagine what that was like. I'm the youngest of 4. And so I have one brother that's pretty close in age to me. And then I have an older brother that's, I think, 7 years older than me. And then my older sister that's about 9 years older than me. Growing up with them, I mean, dude, we were pretty low class. I remember just a story for you. We were living in Longmont at the time. and my dad came over to help fix my mom's van. And I didn't even know that was my dad because I was so distant from him as a young kid. He came over to fix my mom's car tire. And we had this old blue van. It was like I don't know, it looked like a star logo. Maybe it was like a Mercury or something like that. And I remember there not being like seats in the van. You know, there was maybe a back seat, but there wasn't seats in the middle of the van. And it was just dirty and nasty. And I didn't think of it when I was a kid, but I think of it now. And he came over to help fix her flat tire and fill it up with air. And I remember thinking like, who is that guy? You know, and my mom telling me that was my dad. And I'm like, my dad?
This was after he left.
Yeah. And I was so young too. Like I didn't even understand the concept of what a dad is. Like, what's a dad? And it was kind of a conversation about like this, I'm your mom, I'm in your life, and that's your dad. And we both had you kind of thing. And I still didn't understand. You know, I was just like, okay, whatever that means.
So you're growing up in a poor family. Dad's not around. Mom's working her butt off to raise 4 kids. You know, where did you get your examples of just life and leadership? Because I know where you headed with your story because you shared this. You know, you got into some things.
Oh yeah.
How did that play a role with not having a dad there? Like, where were those influences? How did they pull on you? How did that lead you into what you got involved in?
Yeah, good question, man. I think, you know, growing up with my siblings, they had a lot of influence. A lot of my peers had influence in me, you know, so I would always learn by fire, right? So if I got in trouble, or if I did something to somebody else, the teacher would come down on me. But I think my biggest trait is just the ability to not quit, and on my personality and who I am and how I've been forged. You know, I'm not the smartest guy in the room. I'm not the sharpest tack, that's for sure, you know? And, but one thing that, you know, when I was growing up, my mom, we got a house off 3rd Street in Loveland. And I remember listening to her cry every night and being like, shoot, should I go in and see if something's going on? But then she'd wake up the next day and she'd just go to work like nothing happened. And I'm like, that's such a weird concept. Like, you can see somebody crying. When I cry, it's like, shoot, I fell off the bike. That fucking hurt. Like, I don't want to continue life. This is it. You know, it's over. Yeah, I'm done with this. But you know, I'd see my mom get up the next day and she would go to work. And realizing now, she was in the shit, man. She was in the struggle every single day. And at night, she couldn't handle it. There was no hope. There was no way that she would get out of it. And I would hear her crying. But she woke up every day, she put one foot in front of the other, and she just went.
Just kept going.
Yeah.
Never quit.
And so in that mind frame of just like how hopeless you can feel, but that you can still get up and move forward, like that's power. You know, like there's very few people that feel that hopelessness and they're like, just give up. You know, whether you know, some people commit suicide, some people get into drugs and alcohol. Some people quit their business. Some people quit their job. Some people quit their families. Some dads leave their families, you know? So there's a lot of ways out in our society, and society makes it so you can quit, and it's still going to be hard if you quit, but you just kind of have to choose that hard.
And they make it easy.
Yes.
There's always like the easy way out.
Yeah.
I see that all the time. I teach kids jujitsu downstairs, and it shocks me. You know, mom or dad comes in, or they both come in with a kid. Oh, you know, kid's getting bullied. I go, hey, they need to be here 2 to 3 times a week for 3 to 6 months.
Yeah.
Give me 3. Like, give me 3 months twice a week, and they will learn some things. They will have some tools. And it's a 6-year-old, 7-year-old, right? And then 4 classes in, something gets hard. Kid takes a break fall. I don't want to do this anymore. And the parents are like, yeah, we're going to go do something else. We're going to quit. You just quit on your kid.
That's so hard, man. You see a lot of parents that they will never, you know, and I push back against this because, okay, so you let your kid quit, but what happens down the road? Your kid is always 90% of their life, 95% are things that I don't want to do every single day. You know what I mean? This is cool. Like, this is the 5% or 10% of my life that I like to do, right? It's easy. We're just sitting here having a conversation. But there's a lot of things that I don't like to do. I don't like sitting down in front of my computer and charting all of the expenses all month. You know, in QuickBooks, I don't like having to deal with tough customers. You know, I don't like doing this thing going forward with city council and seeing all the people chatting about you. You know what I mean? I don't like a lot of that. And even some of the hard things that you have to deal with in your marriage, you know, some of the hard things you have to deal with outside and in your job, you know, or just with friends, with peers, you know, you're going to split from people. All of that stuff is hard. And why not start forging your kids when they're young to say, hey, this is hard. And maybe you don't like to do this, but there's a lesson in here because you're going to have to do hard things in your life no matter what. And you can't just quit.
Do you like sit your kids down? So I'm curious how you like tactically do that. Do you sit them down and have that conversation, or is it just in those moments where they want to, you're just like, not even an option?
You know what? I have, so my 12-year-old, he's with me 50-50. And so he goes to the other household. I don't really want to get on the rabbit hole with that, but I do very much try to push that on him and say, hey man, you know what? Like your boss is not going to really care about you when you're older. Maybe they will, you know, maybe they'll try to help you as much as possible. But for the most part, you're going to be a man really soon here. You know, 12 years old, you'd be 13 in December of this year. And people start looking at you differently when you're older. You start to, you stop being this kid that everybody's like, oh, you know what, you're stay in sports and stay in school. And the conversations start to change, you know? So I definitely push that on him. He needs it a little bit more than my 6-year-old daughter. My 6-year-old daughter is, you know, between my wife and I, we both take the same approach where she takes a more gentle, be brave, Lucy, do this, you know, you can do this. And I'm like, Lucy, get up there and climb that fucking rope, you know?
Yeah.
And not like that, but I'm more stern about it. You know what I mean? I'm like, you can do it. Just do it. Like, and,
hey, just want to give a big shout out to one of our sponsors, Imprint Digital. If you're a small business owner, one of the things that you need to navigate to be successful is all things online and digital in terms of marketing and your messaging. Imprint Digital, they're the real deal. They are the professionals and they know this world inside and out. Make sure to visit their website at imprint-digital.com. A big shout out and thank you to one of our sponsors, M&D Painting and Roofing. M&D was actually founded by my wife Emily and I back in 2005. And for the last 2 decades, we've been here in northern Colorado of one of the leaders in residential and commercial repainting, as well as most recently installing residential roofs. So if you need to paint, re-roof, you got hit by a hailstorm, we can take care of whatever your home needs from top to bottom. You can find us on the web at mandepainting.com.
She's overcome a lot and she can just, you know, she'll go over the edge just by a little bit of encouragement. But it's both parents being right there, you know, where my son has kind of conflicting in a way, leadership. And then my daughter, that's 2, she's just, you know, she's the babied one. So we don't really teach her that yet. But for my 6-year-old daughter, Lucy, she's excelling very quickly. She's very physically capable. She's very smart. She's very organized, so organized to the point where we almost have to unteach that to her at this age. So
too organized.
Yeah, man. I mean, you like
go be messy a little bit,
dude. I mean, we could like walk into her room and everything has a spot. I used to play this game, and this was like last year I'd play this game. So she was 5, and I'd walk into her room. I'd say, okay, go in the corner, close your eyes, and I'm going to go move 3 things out of your room. And then you're going to go back, walk around your room, and you're going to move them back. And dude, it was like, I would grab my, you know, a toy and I just turn it like this so that the toy Ken is facing that way. And she'd walk through her room and she'd go boop, you know, and just move the 3 items back in less than a minute. Yeah. And so, yeah, but I don't know, we're getting kind of down the rabbit hole, but.
No, I love it. I love hearing about your family. You know, you and I were comparing notes right before the show. So like full disclosure, this is our 4th coffee.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You and I were hanging out, working, doing work at another coffee shop, having coffee. Now we're here having more coffee. But you and I were comparing notes right before the show is, you know, we both had experiences, you and I growing up, of getting involved in drugs and substances and diving into that world.
Yeah.
I thought that was a really interesting story, what you shared. And I think it can provide a lot of value to talk about how you got through that and how you got to the other side of that. But share that if you're okay with it.
Yeah.
Because I think it's just so powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one day I walk into my house, and I'm in high school. I'm a sophomore in high school, so I'm 16 years old. I came home for lunch or something like that, And I walk into my house. We're living in a duplex, and we're like right down the street from Thompson Valley at the time. And my brother and my best friend at the time, they were sitting over the table, and I walked in. They both looked at me like, "Hey, what's up?" And I kind of see what's on the table, and I'm like, "Hey, what are you guys doing?" And they say, "Hey, this is Oxycontin. Have you heard of it?" And I said, "No." I'm still innocent at this time, right? And this was, I think it was like the beginning of the year too. It was still like nice out. And they kind of told me about it. They said, "Hey, I've done some already, and I had like the best day ever." So I'm like, shit, well, I want to have the best fucking day ever too. Well, I ended up snorting a line, ended up being 5 milligrams at the time. And for the next 13, 14 years, man, my life just changed. It happened slow, but it changed. I got into that world more. And obviously, that whole Oxycontin, Percocets, pills, Xanax, they took the United States by storm. It changed a lot of families, tore a lot of families apart. So yeah, I got into that world, and, fast forward 13, 14 years later, and it just took me saying, "Hey, I'm done." I had a big issue and falling out in my relationship with my now at the time wife. And I'm like, all right, I'm done. That's it. And I set a date. I said, this is the last time I'm doing it. And then that's it.
And done.
And I was done, man. And, I had the shakes. I had, sleepless nights. I was irritable, frustrated, mad. I was angry. I drank a little bit too much. I went through just trying to, whatever I could do to get through it. And I ended up getting through it. But, when you're in it, you don't realize how bad you're in it. By the time I was 19, 20 years old, I'd lay out 80 milligrams of Oxycontin, and I would do it all in one line, and I would just snort it.
And that's a lot.
Oh man. If you're not doing it on a daily basis, you might die from that. You might die. If not, you're puking, you're sweating, and you go to the hospital, get your stomach pumped.
And just so literally that day you walk in, brother's there, gives you the look, "Hey, having a great day." Like there's no going back from that.
Well, he was always the leader, man. And so I kind of took him, he introduced me to a lot of people. He protected me in a lot of ways when I was younger and whatnot. Like we would get in like a street fight or something. And if my brother Abe was there, like we were okay, or if I would get beat up and he would see it, he would also let things happen. He would like let me lose a fight, but then he would go in and beat the guy up, And so he had some good attributes about him, but at the time, he didn't see it either. He was going through a lot of the same pain as I was growing up, but we just weren't receptive to our stepdad. We were angry. We both wrestled growing up. We didn't know why we were angry, And so getting into high school, and a lot of things change. You start meeting girls. You have this social hierarchy, if you will. And for the most part, he was like the leader in there. Like people kind of liked him. And since they liked him, then they, befriended me and they liked me, and he kind of went down that path, and I just followed behind him like, oh, I guess this is the cool thing to do. And then my buddy at the time, he was a popular guy too. So we all kind of got into it. And then shoot, man, we did a lot of damage because we also spread that out to a lot of people. And I feel bad about that. Some of the people that, I was doing pills with back in the day, they're not here anymore. Yeah. And so you kind of have to think back and be like, shit, what role did you play?
Yeah.
And so that's always going to be heavy on my heart.
And how do you grapple with that or come to terms with that or try to reconcile that? Or can you just knowing that
I think you just be the best person you can be now. I'm being the best dad I can be now. I still make mistakes. On Sunday, I blew up, had a blow up with my kids. I do it all the time, man. And I'm not perfect, but I try to lead this life of like, Jesus is the template, the way that he lived when he was on earth. That's the template. Yeah. And knowing that I have grace whenever I make mistakes, and knowing that it's just not the end of the world. In the past, it's like, oh, I made this mistake, so just make another mistake. I already did Percocet for the last 5, 6, 7 years. I snorted it. Well, might as well smoke it. You know, and I had this idea of attaching all these bad things, like I was never going to get out of it. So like, why try to be better for one day when I've been shitty for the last 1,500 days?
And right. When you think about it, you just feel even worse. You're like, let's just dig a bigger hole.
Yeah.
Dive into it.
Oh yeah, man. I mean, the rabbit hole you go down is very hard to get out. Not only mentally, physically, right? You can physically feel those changes when you try to get out to your body. And you don't realize what it's done to your mind, and you don't realize what type of person you've been and the type of perception that you've given other people. You don't know what people see you like until you get out of it. And then you look back and you're like, shit, I was a really shitty person. I can't believe I did this to that person. I can't believe I was this guy.
So when you had that moment, you told your now wife, you're like, hey, I'm done. Were there moments before that when you tried or you gave it a shot? And those obviously weren't successful. We had talked about that. What was the difference between the times you had tried and it didn't stick?
Oh man, it was a breakdown, man. And just in our relationship. And my wife had, she'd basically forgiven me, and she said, hey, everything in your past, like I forgive you for, and I still love you. I'm still here for you. And that was like the saving grace. That was a changing moment, that she's sitting there crying with me, or she's crying. And at the time I wasn't crying. And she said, Zeke, I already forgive you. I still love you. And I was like, I just don't deserve it. I felt like I didn't deserve her. I feel like she's a true, she's a blessing, man. For 10 years, I turned my wife away, and she tried, and she kept trying. She kept trying to come back and be in my life. And, I'll quote her, be in a serious relationship with me. That's how she was, man. So for that long, like, I never really had like a problem getting girls per se, growing up.
You got that Abercrombie face, right?
Thank you.
Abercrombie face. That's a compliment.
I appreciate that.
I have a face for radio. I don't think that's a compliment.
Yeah. You got a voice for radio though, man. So, seeing that, it all kind of came together, and I'm a faith-based man. And I've, at the time when I was going through it, I was getting away from God, and I was getting away from that template in the Word. And my wife having that vulnerability to say, like, I forgive you and I still love you, that's what really changed it for me. And then I said, this is how I have to answer, because I don't deserve this life. And so there's another turning point where if you don't feel like you deserve the life, you go left, you go right, And for me, I was like, I got to get my shit together. I have 2 kids at the time, and I have to do it for them now. Even if I'm not a successful business owner, even if I never make them proud, I have to be a good father for them, and I have to break the generational curse that I've been wanting to break for so long, and I have to move forward.
So question, you mentioned you're a Christ follower, right?
Yes.
God's a huge part of your life.
Absolutely.
And you talk about the generational curse, generational sin. Was your going up your lineage, was that of fatherlessness or godlessness or
the fatherlessness?
Substance abuse, just main, not a strong rock foundation of a man.
Yeah.
In the family's life.
Yeah.
To hold that family together.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. Yeah, my dad, I know that he was a big alcoholic back in the day. He worked on the oil rigs, and he worked with my grandpa at one point and was just drinking a ton. And then he stopped completely. And, the fatherlessness was the generational curse for me. I'm a big proponent of having a father in the house and having a 2-parent household, and, having those different perspectives.
Yeah.
Now I can see how 2 parents is a better way over even 4 parents, because now my son, I have him 50-50, and, his mom is also married. And so instead of just Katie and I coaching Lucy, I can just imagine if she had, another 2 people coaching her. So now it starts to get a little bit confusing for the kids, and he's trying to disseminate, like, what's better? Whose advice is better advice? Yeah. And that gets confusing, because me, like, I'm confused about it. Whose advice is the best advice,
And for the kid, it's like, it's the advice you need to follow when you're in that environment.
Yeah.
Right? And it can be totally confusing.
Exactly.
So how do you get from this background of fatherlessness and getting involved in drugs and not having a guiding light? Like, where do you find God? And then curious, I want to hear how and when and where business kind of turns into that, because you're now the successful faith-based business guy making an impact in the community. So where were those turning points? Like, talk about how did you find God? Was it always a part of your life?
Yeah. So young, my dad would take me to church. I went with him, I want to say like 6, 7, 8 times, maybe. I don't even know. I honestly don't even remember how many times throughout my entire childhood going with him. And I remembered I just hated it. And I hated church, man. I went with my mom when I was a little bit younger, and she would kind of dangle the carrot over my head. Hey, you go to church and I'll give you $20 to go to the movies, you know? And I always felt like church was very cult-like. When I would go to church, we went to Resurrection back in the day, and I just remember seeing like the preacher up there and the lights on the preacher or the pastor and all these people that, you know, they're holding their hand out. And it, just in my mind, I always felt like, that just looks a little weird, seems a little weird. Yeah. But I always wanted to be a good person, you know, and that seed was there. And maybe I just wasn't able to receive that information because at the time going to church when I'm even 17, 18 years old, I mean, I probably was at church on pills.
And you're high all day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I wrestled on pills. I played football games on pills. I went and hung out with my friends on pills. I was with my, mom on pills everywhere. You know, I go have conversations with my teachers on pills. It was everywhere. It was in all parts of my life. And so maybe I just wasn't able to receive it the way that I receive it now and pay attention to it. But yeah, it's always been kind of a seed that's planted and been there, you know, and I've always thought I need to be, no matter what, I'm going to try to be a good person, you know. I guess I just never really like forgave myself enough to just be vulnerable and say, I'm going to go all in on this and quit earlier than I did on the drugs. And so in 2015, I just decided to start Supernatural Eats. And I had Silas at the time. He was born in 2010. And back in like 2012, I'm a single dad, and it kind of came full circle. I'm like, I'm going to end up like my mom. What am I doing? You know, I went to culinary school back in 2008. And so what should I do with this sales background that I have, this marketing background that I have, this cooking background that I have? What do I do with it? You know, and I'm still trying to figure that out. At the time, I'm still partying, you know, I'm still very enmeshed. But I have my 2-year-old and I'm just trying to make it work. I'm selling cars and coming home from work. And I'm, getting him fed, getting him in a bath, and then I'm putting him to bed. And I go through that cycle enough times and I'm like, shit, I'm really not getting to know my son. My dad didn't get to know his sons either. So what am I going to do to break that, you know? And I had enough sense in those moments where I'm like, I got to spend some time with him, even if it's 15 minutes, even if it's 20 minutes in a night. And one day I just cooked this big pot of lasagna, and that's what we ate all week. And he loved it. He was, he's down. He loves lasagna, right?
Even to this, cook, man.
Yeah, yeah, because I could cook. That was one thing. And I used a recipe that my mom had used, and that was always delicious as a kid. And so we ate that, and for 15, 20 minutes, instead of me cooking and cleaning for that 15, 20 minutes a night, I was able to hang out with him.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the change, and where I was like, how can I use this? Whenever I grasp onto an idea, I always try to, how can I now capitalize on it? It's a good idea. Somebody else has to be out there that is feeling the exact same way. If it's not a single dad, maybe it's a single mom, maybe it's a family that has 4 kids, 5 kids, maybe it's just somebody that's really busy and they don't know how to cook, because more and more people don't know how to cook nowadays. And that's where the idea got started for Supernatural Eats.
Really cool. And it's interesting too. I heard a stat. I can't remember what it is, and who knows if it's an accurate stat, but the very small amount of time that both parents, but especially fathers, spend engaging with their son or daughter, like sitting down, no phone, no TV, just, hey, how was your day? Like, how many minutes a day are you actually engaging with your kid. And I need to check myself a lot too, because we get into the habits and the routines and get home, and it's easy to throw on the TV or just go, straight to dinner, straight to homework. But being intentional with that time, and you can be present in your kid's life, but totally not present within that presence, which is interesting.
Yeah. It's really hard. I struggle with that all the time, because you want to be the best person that you can for your kids, and just for your peers, for your community. You want to be somebody that can be relied upon. And I think that's where God comes in, is to issue that grace that maybe you're only 60% on this day, maybe you're 100% on this day, maybe you're 40%, but you have that grace. And, every morning when I pray, that's just what I pray for. It's just that day, and to be able to win that day, no matter if I can give 40% effort, 75% effort, or 100% effort. Life is hard, man. And I think that there's value in people understanding that they can be the saving grace for somebody else, and inspiring somebody else, and helping other people around them, because we never really know what other people are going through.
Hey, if you're a Christian business owner, you have to check out one of our sponsors, the Foundry Advisory. The Foundry is a Christian peer advisory group where we get together on a monthly basis to discuss everything that's important in our life, our business, our families, and our faith. I'm a member, and I love being a part of this group. You've got to check them out at thefoundryadvisory.com. When you go to their website, make sure you check out their Refresh event, which is happening January 11th through the 13th, 2024, up in Estes Park. That can be found at thefoundryadvisory.com/refresh. If your life or business are cluttered up with junk right now, then you've got to reach out to one of our sponsors, Hulk Addicts Hauling. Hulk Addicts can come out to your home or business to do anything from removing junk to appliances. Maybe you're demoing or doing construction on a property and you need it cleared out. Maybe you need a big dumpster dropped off that they can roll off later. Make sure to check them out at hulkaddictsjunk.com. They are serving all of northern Colorado, as well as up and down the Front Range. Hey, if you're a business owner and you need to do some renovation in your space, or possibly build a building from the ground up, you have to connect with one of our sponsors, Mendel Construction. Mendel Construction is a commercial construction company that's been around since 1997, serving all of Colorado. They can do a small tenant finish all the way up to ground up construction of a new building for your business. Check them out at mendelandcompany.com. That's MENDEL and company.com. Yeah. And it's interesting, you walk into a coffee shop, and maybe the gal at the counter is a little short with you, and you've got two options. You're like, I can call her out on that, tell her to be nicer, or just give her a smile, tell her to have a nice day. She could be going through something that you have no idea about, and that smile could be the only smile that she's seen in weeks, and could totally change the trajectory of her day, her week, her life. And you just don't realize those things. I think about some of the people in my life that have just been, they had no idea that it was so impactful, just the kindness or the grace or the forgiveness, the attention they showed me. And it totally changed the direction of a period of life where it was not a good period, not a good time.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So as you're talking about making these realizations as a father, and then the idea of supernatural eats comes up, we squirreled a little bit because I think we're high in coffee.
Oh, for sure, dude. I'm buzzing. We
need to have no more of this. But I was really interested to hear that faith journey. So you're going to church, and it's kind of weird. They're, throwing the hands up. Like, where was that moment for you? Like, where did you have that intimate connection with God, where you really realized and understood what it was about, and really gave your life to that? Like, was there a moment? Was it more of just the overall journey?
You know what? I don't know that there's an exact moment. The closest thing that I can get to is, and how I point to this, everybody sees it differently, I think. Everybody is impacted by God differently. Everybody interacts with God differently. Everybody has their different story. But I think one similarity is that when you do have it, when you do have that aha, when you do have the moment, right, that we all want to talk about, mine was actually pretty recent. 2021, I'm up elk hunting. And I'm at the end of what it's called 75 hard. I'm at the end of that 75 hard. I think I was 1 or 2 more days left after I finished hunting. And dude, I'm in great shape. I'm 175 pounds. I'm shredded. I could run 5-6 miles like nothing. And I go out hunting, and it was, I started hunting in 2020. 2021 was like my second year hunting and my first year on my own. And I go up there, I had no fucking idea what I was doing. Zero, and now knowing what I know, I even point back to myself like, God, you idiot. Yeah. But somehow it worked. I got out and I saw elk on like a Sunday, and so Monday I wake up the next morning to go and try and find him again. And I didn't see him in the morning. So I just hiked straight up the mountain. I was like, oh, well, maybe I'll just go straight up that mountain and just keep walking until I find one. That was literally the plan. There's nothing else. And so I get to the top of this mountain. I'm like 4 miles deep into the woods at this point. And, it's around 2:30 in the afternoon. And I'm sitting there, I'm eating a Cliff Bar, and I just start praying. And I'm like, God, please help me. Like, I need a big win for myself. I need a big win for my family. Like, give me something that I can go home with so that my wife doesn't look at me like I'm just this fucking idiot up here in the woods waving a gun around. And I kept praying, man. I'm like, please, God, just put one in front of me. Please, God, just put one in front of me. Please, God, just put one in front of me. I said that 1,000 times probably, Matt. And, the wind starts swirling. I'm at the very top of this mountain. The wind is starting to swirl, and I breathe in, and I remember my buddy, I had a conversation with him. He's up in Alaska. He said, elk smell like barn when you get really close to them, that barny, pungent smell. And I remember that thought came into my mind as this wind is swirling because I smelled it. I'm like, is that elk? It's weird, right? And then all of a sudden I hear these footsteps, and I thought the footsteps were like right next to me, but they must have been on the other side of the hill, and it sounded like running, and I'm like, shit, what the fuck is happening over here? And then I heard a branch break, and I'm like, no, this is just weird the way this is all happening. I think I'm at the top of this mountain. I've just got done praying. I'm like, I keep asking God to put one in front of me, and I'm looking around. There's nothing around. It just seemed like all this noise was happening around me. And then I start smelling elk, and it's, I think 3:15 at the time now. And I'm like, I'm about 4 miles away, and I have to do a lot of hiking. I have to go probably up 1 or 2 more mountainsides. And I'm like, shit, maybe I should head back. So I turn around at the moment, and I heard another branch break, and I kind of try to follow that branch. And then I'm like, shit, no, I'm just out of here, dude. I'm going to turn around and go back. So I start walking, and I have my head down, and I'm still praying. I'm saying, please, God, put one in front of me. Please, God, put one in front of me. And that's all I did. I said, just put one in front of me, and I'll do the rest. Okay. And I'm walking with my head down at the time. I didn't even have a round in the chamber. And all of a sudden I look up, and 4 elk, big ass bull elk, walk right in front of me. And the path, I shit you not, it's just like this perfect path. It was all burnt trees. I was hunting in the burn. And just down this path where I was walking, one had stopped. And it didn't even look over at me. It just looked straight, but it stopped. And I'm like, I'm frozen. And I start shaking. I didn't even know what to do. I was actually kind of scared. I'm like, is this thing going to turn around and fucking run at me or something? What's happening? And then I think of it. I'm like, all right, I need to get around in the chamber. So I get around in the chamber, and I look up, and it's still standing there. And I'm still in awe. I still hadn't done anything. And so I'm like, okay, well, I better, put my gun up and try to shoot at this thing. And as I raise my gun up, it runs away. And I'm like, oh, fuck. I missed my opportunity. And so I start running after it. And out of nowhere, I don't even know how I saw it. There are these 2 eyes staring at me, and there are these trees. And the 2 eyes are staring at me between the trees. And I look over, and I see the rat come up, just huge. And I'm like, oh my God, there's one staring at me, and it's dead frozen. It's just looking at me while the other ones were scattered off. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to shoot this fucking thing right here. And I had a round in the chamber. I tried to post my hand on a dead tree, and I was shaking so bad that I couldn't, I had to take a few deep breaths. I remember a time where, my friend Sam said, hey man, when you shoot, exhale and then you shoot. And I remembered that in the moment. I exhaled, I shoot, I hit the bull elk right in his chest, and I look up and I lost him, and I had no idea where he went. Well, then I hear this big crash in the woods and I'm like, holy shit, what was that? I'm like, duh, you idiot. It's an elk that just fell down. You got him, right? And I'm starting to get so excited. And then I walk around and I'm walking up that perfect path that was carved for me. And I look over and he's laying on the ground and I'm like, dang, that thing is so huge. And I was so scared to like walk up to it. Well, then he looks over at me, sees me, gets up, runs down the hill. And the first thing I thought of was I got to call my wife. And so I'm on the FaceTime with my wife and I'm like showing her, babe, I got this elk. And I just remember being so happy, right? And thinking back at that time, that elk that came out, it was so perfect where it came out and it had stopped. And there was almost like this light shining through into the trees on this perfect path where I had just asked God, put one in front of me, just put one in front of me. And he put an elk right in fucking front of me. And excuse my language, but that exactly what I asked for in the moment that I asked for that miracle, because I had no idea what I was doing. God came and delivered. And now we have, elk in our freezer and I was doing a heck of a time, man. Like breaking down an elk by yourself is a whole nother realm, but had I not been in the shape that I was in, I probably wouldn't have got that elk back to the car, right? So everything leading up to that, it all started to make sense. Like I'm on this journey for a reason. It's all making sense, and it comes to a head where I shoot this elk. God beams this elk right in front of me, and you couldn't get any more picture perfect. And I'm like, I'm on the right path, And I had faith before that, but it's things like that make me feel like I'm on the right path, that I'm doing something right, that something is aligning. And when I'm praying for it and it's delivered, then I know that God is sitting right next to me.
Have you ever had times where you're praying for it and it doesn't show up?
Oh, plenty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So where's the difference there? Because I think it's hard. It feels easier, right? When I was praying for it, boom, it just showed up right there.
Yeah.
But then I think of the times we're praying for things, we're asking for things, and it's not there. It's like, did God not want that to be there for you? I love that, man.
Yeah, that's where your faith comes in.
Yeah.
You have to really look deep and into it, and I guess sometimes you have to be okay with the path that you're on, and that you're like your end goal of what God has in store for you. Obviously, I have huge goals. I want to make a big difference, and I can talk about all of that, but to be able for me to submit, that's where my faith comes in. And I think everybody's faith is just, if it's not the right time, like the spirit realm has the right time, but we do not. Like me as just a physical man, I don't know everything. I don't know how it's all going to be put together, right? I don't know how this is all going to come about. But I have faith in knowing that God is going to put me where he wants me to put me. Whether that be influence, whether that be, a multi-billionaire someday where I can help a lot of people at once, But that, like I said, I think that's where the faith comes in, is you just have to take a step back and just say, even though this prayer is not being answered, or maybe it's never answered, where you end up is where you're supposed to be.
Yeah. Right where you're supposed to be all the time.
Yeah.
So a couple questions. You're a successful business owner. Your business is growing. Somebody that's in your shoes, they're a couple years into business. Like, what were some of the big lessons that, looking back at younger Zeke, first days of business, that you would tell yourself, or you just tell a new business owner? It's like, business is hard, right?
Oh,
and it's not getting any easier, right? Cost of everything is going up. People are, I feel like people are going into this season of pulling back, and there's all this fear in the news and uncertainty, right? We're getting into another one of these cycles, and it'd be a really hard time to start a business right now. So what were some of the big things you learned, or that you've got to tell yourself every day,
Yeah. This is kind of a weird take on it, right? But everybody wants, coached the right way up. They want the pathway to get to their $1 million, $2 million, $5 million a year salary through business, right? They want to live on a yacht. They want to do, all these cool things that you see other multimillionaire billionaires doing. And what I would say to my younger self or anybody that's starting in business is that if you don't quit in business like if you never quit, you will 100% be successful. Like that, your rate of success will always be 100% because you can never be told that you're going to fail and you're just going to stop. There's going to be a lot of failures along the way. And sometimes it just comes down to it, man. Like, oh shit, your store got broken into, robbed, or maybe somebody sued you, or, maybe you had an employee quit and you lost a lot of customers and you have to go back into your business and do a bunch of work. Maybe your marketing didn't work. I don't know, maybe you wrecked one of your company vehicles really bad and you had to, deal with the insurance. Whatever it is, there's always something where the business owner's head comes up on the chopping block. And the only difference between you and somebody that's a billionaire or a multimillionaire is that business owner took it and then they just put another, they started another day. They put their left foot in front of the other foot and they just kept going. All of that stuff is going to happen and it'll happen forever. And it's never going to get easier from the very start. You might have this buzz and it might be all glamorous and you're in the honeymoon stage for the first couple years, right? And everybody loves you and you love everybody. But what happens after that and what you do with it is you just keep going.
Yeah, the power is in the hard days. And you look at the society we live in with social media, right?
Oh yeah.
Everything pops up and look at the success this person had in real estate or business, and they're teaching the course about it, right? And they're showing you how successful they are. I saw one this morning. Oh, I invest in all this real estate and I live on Maui and all of this. It's like, dude, that guy had hard days. Like show that, talk about that, because I think these people set an expectation that it's that easy. Like nothing's that easy. You don't own $200 million worth of real estate by just, you followed some 7 steps and every day was easy and flowery and great. Things are hard.
Yeah.
It's on the line every day. And I wish people would be more real about that when they're selling these courses.
Yeah, that would be really helpful.
Yeah.
Because that's the I guess the money in there and the gold in that is that things don't get easier, you just get better.
Yep.
And the people that are there, they know how to solve a lot of problems. With employees, with legally, financially, they understand business enough to where they can get to that point in time. They're not just, there's one thing that Gary Vee says that I don't know that I agree with. And he says, just double down on everything that you know. And it's like, dude, not when you start. Maybe when I'm a fucking CEO and I have 40 or 50 people and the thing that I'm good at, I'm just going to do over and over again and everybody else can work on what they want to work on, right? Yeah. But you kind of have to learn enough of everything to be competent to move forward.
Yeah, at the beginning, you have to do everything. I remember the early days of M&E painting. It was Emily and I in the condo. We got to a point where there was enough financial bandwidth that she could quit her job. She's making like $9 an hour at an adult respite care facility, and she's in the office on the phone, doing the phone scheduling, and doing the books. But I mean, between her and I, we were touching every single part of that business. Yeah. And there's value in that. For me, there was value in that. I know that I suck at the bookkeeping. I'm really bad at the painting, but I need to know enough about it to go talk about it, to go sell it.
Yes.
Eventually to get out of it. But there's just some days where like, you're in everything.
Yeah.
You're in everything. You're scrubbing the toilets. You're closing the shop down. Just is what it is for a little bit.
Well, and how can I own Supernatural Eats, right? Meal prep business. How am I going to talk to anybody about meal preparation and how much time it saves them without knowing everything intricately of why we steer in a certain direction, why we deliver on Thursday and Friday, how it helps me in my life. Like I get 12 meals every single week. I get 12 meals and my wife and I and my kids, we all eat them. And so I can intricately tell you how it's going to save you time here, save you time there. Like I'll tell you how I can eat a meal going to a meeting because I don't have enough time to heat it up, and at least it's all cooked, so I can just shuffle it down cold. And as a business owner, there's a lot of people that can relate to that of like, shit, man, I don't have the time, and that's why I want to do meal prep, or I don't have the time and I go through the drive-through at McDonald's, and then their health starts to trickle down.
Yeah.
So it's good being able to speak to all of those facets of your business. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
I got another question for you.
Yeah.
So before we go, you just jumped into a new world of politics here locally at the Loveland level. And why are you running for city council? What do you want to accomplish for Loveland? I mean, you grew up here. I've been here 32 of my 42 years, and Loveland has changed. It's grown. There's a lot going on in the city right now. So like, what are the big things that you wish to accomplish here?
Well, I'll start by saying how I got into it. You know, when everything happened with COVID, the pandemic, I really started to look inward and be like, what's happening on a national level? Why are we being steered down one path so badly? And I mean, Supernatural Aids took a big hit, man. You know, there was a couple months there that if some things didn't happen, we might have closed down. I might not have been here, you know, or maybe I just put Supernatural Aids on hold for a couple months or for a year or something like that and gone and done something else. And that was such a frustrating time in my life that, you know, I'm not going to run for president and I'm not going to be a senator. I don't want to get that deep into politics. Right. But, you know, I really started working on myself and making sure that I stay in good shape and that I'm mentally prepared, physically prepared, and that I'm doing everything I can to fix myself. And then I focused on my family and making sure that I'm being a good husband, making sure that I'm being a good father, making sure that I'm providing security for my family. And so I focus on myself, I focus on my family, and then the next is focusing on the community. And that's the next kind of big circle. And so here in Loveland, you know, there's some problems that we have, and they're not really, you know, bipartisan problems. They are, you know, affordable housing, they're homelessness. How do we deal with that? You know, and a lot of the stuff that's happening nationally is happening here close. So, you know, I'm not a president and I can't change everything overnight, right? But I think a lot of people are getting short-sighted in what they can do for the city. For me, I need to be somebody that can get along with you in order for you to trust me, right? I'm one of 9 votes when I get on city council. And so how would I ever sway 5 people to get on my side and get on board with what I want to do? Well, they have to trust me first. How do they trust me? Well, I show up and I listen and I take what they say seriously. And then after, you know, a year and a half of being on city council, then I start pitching some ideas, and some may stick, some may not. But if I'm not a good person where people can trust me and they feel like I'm genuine with them and I'm not doing anything behind closed doors, that's where I can make the change. You know,
yeah.
There's some people they'll, you know, they're campaigning on, we're going to do this and this and this and this and this. And it's like, no, you're not. You're not going to do anything. You're going to get in there and, you know, unless you can like get along with people, you're just going to get pushed away. You know, you're just going to be one of the no votes when there's 7 yeses. So that's how I want to approach city council, for one. And then, yeah, man, I definitely want to work on that affordable housing. I think that, you know, I want my son to be able to buy a house here. How am I going to do that?
Somebody made a comment this morning. I was talking to him, and he goes, man, affordable housing, like forget that conversation, just attainable housing. Like, how do you even attain it with the way the numbers and the inflation and the appreciation? Like, how do you even do that? You know, I'm looking at my son, he's 15, he's ready to buy a house soon, right? Like, how's he even going to get in? Yeah. That's crazy. It's like, what do you do?
Right. Yeah. And I think a lot of that is, you have to make good relationships with people. You have to forge good relationships. They have to be made. We have some people here in town that they're capable of building housing that is more attainable and working with developers and pitching them this idea. But if you demonize people, they're never going to want to do it, you know? Because if you go buy a build a $600,000 house, you know, they still make their money. But how are you going to convince somebody to build a $250,000 house? How are you going to change the universal code for building so that we can have smaller lots for smaller houses for kids that are maybe 20, 21 years old. And maybe they're, maybe they have a pretty good job where they're making 25, 30 bucks an hour. And they just want to have a 1 or 2 bedroom house that's really small that they can, take care of their yard. They can plant some shit in it, whatever, but just live a simple life. And you have to be able to convince people that that is a path that's good for the city. It's good for our youth. It's good for seniors. And in turn, maybe they won't make as much money, but it'll be good for them as well, because then the public will thank them, So that all comes with, I think, relationship building and the vision for Loveland. It's hard, man, because everything is expensive right now.
Very. Yeah. And It seems like people are very divided just in the conversations. I had an interesting experience and I posted about it on Facebook, and just the two different sides of the conversation. I was just stating something that happened, an engagement with somebody in the community that was pretty inappropriate. And I just said, this isn't okay. And it turned into this big political discussion. I'm like, I was just stating fact, I'm not taking any sides here. Yeah. You mentioned something that was super important. I think just as much in like life and business and all around is, if I attack you, I'm digging a grave for both of us. And we were talking offline a little bit. Were you surprised getting into politics that there would be the personal attacks? Because you're experiencing some of that, right?
You know what? Watching it on a national level, like, the optics from a national level, I guess I wasn't really surprised. I just don't, where the strain comes from is the everyday going after it. Supernatural Eats is taking a backseat to it very much, and so that kind of stunts our growth in a way, because I'm focusing more on the campaign. And then when I'm, listening to city council meetings at my house for 3 hours, and I can't just go and do everything that I need to for the girls when my wife is cleaning the dishes or when she's trying to put the girls to bed. And, if I get up and help, then I miss good details. And so I'm that's where the strain comes in. My wife is doing a lot for our girls, scheduling the time for them to go and, go with their grandparents or picking them up from school, dropping them off at school, because I'm so busy. And so that's where the strain comes in. And that, my wife is perfect to me. She's an angel, but even she has like times where she's, oh, babe, this is just so much all the time. And it just brings a little bit of strain. And same thing with, like Alex and Alyssa from Imprint. Yeah. Alyssa's helping a ton and she's a blessing, but it's a lot of her time is being directed towards it as well. And she has kids that she's a full-time mom, And so how does that now affect Alex? Right. And Alex is like trying to run his business, and then he's, redirecting some of his efforts to help me out. And then it's like, oh, well, then let's get the kids to the grandparents. And then the grandparents are like, oh, these last 2 months, like I've been watching the kids, 3 or 4 times a week. Like we have stuff that we have to do too, because we still have, our job and our business going or whatever it is. So that trickle effect is where I'm feeling the strain more than, people talking shit on Facebook, man. Just go at it, burn yourselves out. Like if that's what hurt people. So if that's what you want to do, and that's your prerogative, just run with it, whatever.
Yeah. And we know you're not going to say it in person. In person.
Oh, 100%, man. I had this, my buddy was, said something about, in a text message, and I said, it's like the bee and the fly. Like, does a bee ever explain to a fly that the nectar from a flower is better than shit? And sometimes you just can't relay that message to people. It just doesn't resonate with them. They're just like, whatever, still don't like you,
Yep, absolutely.
So that the worst part about it is that not knowing somebody and having them trash talk you online, without them even meeting you or knowing who you are, having a conversation like this, that's what gets to me the most.
Yeah, and it doesn't build the community up any better.
Oh no, no. You're the politics is divisive enough. We don't need to start attacking each other on a local level, because at some point maybe I'll see them at the grocery store. What's that conversation going to be like?
Yeah.
Are they just going to ignore me?
Probably. Because everything, like,
You know,
I think
like
a great filter for social media is whatever I'm about to comment on, would I say it to that person in front of that person? And if not, probably shouldn't say it.
yeah.
So,
Right.
man, loved having you on. Thanks for your story, your motivation and dedication to change your family tree and family legacy for your kids, for their kids, for future generations, making the city a better place. Just being a stand-up businessman who follows and honors God. It's an amazing thing. We're going to wrap it up. So we kind of wrap the podcast up in a fun, cool way. So when you came into the coffee bar, we had our fourth cup of coffee.
Yeah.
You grabbed your favorite color off of our color wall. And we have everybody here that comes on Gentle Art of Leadership. They leave a statement with the audience, and it's the statement you want to leave with the world when you leave it. So what is that?
Yeah, well, before I say this, I do want people to know that, you know, where I came from and everything that I came back from, I want them to be able to know that they can do it as well. Part of my story and getting it out is I don't feel like I have the most difficult story, but I feel like if there's somebody out there that needs a little bit of inspiration or feels like they can't get out of the rut, to hopefully they listen to this and they understand that's where I came from. I came from the shit. I dug myself out, and I'm still not all the way out. You know, I'm still not perfect, but I think I'm out of the rut. So my, I guess, one piece of advice is give more than you take.
Love it. Zeke, that's a wrap. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate you having me on.
Hey, if you're a faith-based father and you have a son who is entering into adolescence and manhood, you've got to check out an experience that we have June 2024. It is the father-son hike of a lifetime on the Camino de Santiago in Spain. I'm going to be taking a group of men and their sons over to Spain to hike some of the most beautiful scenery through northern Spain on the Camino de Santiago. We're going to hike 6 days, 70 miles, 200,000 steps, and have completely disconnected, unplugged, uninterrupted time with our sons. We are going to grow and bond and deepen our relationships with our sons through some very intentionally curated adventures, challenges, and experiences. And we're going to do so in the company of other faith-based men who have the same desire to grow and deepen their story with their son. If you're interested in this adventure with us, go to mattshoup.com. Click the Go to Spain button and check out the Father-Son Hike of a Lifetime.